G'day beautiful humans, let's review the Maxi Cosi Luna Pro and Luna Smart. The Luna Pro and Luna Smart are what we refer to as a Type G child restraint. That is a restraint that harnesses from 6 months till 8 years. And as a side note, that's a 90th percentile child till 8 years of age. There's also not many 6 months olds that will reach the minimum marker in this one. So it's only referred to as 6 months onwards because that's what the legal definition of this category is. It should really be 12 months plus, in my opinion, at the very least. The main difference between the Luna Pro and Luna Smart, or the only difference between the Luna Pro and Luna Smart, is the Pro has little pop-out head supports to put a little bit of pressure on baby's head to stop them getting head flop when they fall asleep. The Smart doesn't have that. Other than that, they are functionally identical and aesthetically identical. So if you're choosing this child restraint, you got to weigh up, are you ever going to use those or are you never going to use them? We never use ours. My daughter doesn't really get head flop too much unless she's really asleep, and it's not very often. She doesn't sleep a lot in the car anymore. The features of this child restraint are it has an easy adjust harness, extra air protect in the headrests, the chin support, as I previously mentioned, cup holders, bamboo wicking fabric, a decent recline, and adjustable crotch buckle. Let's go through those. So first of all, easy adjust harness. The easy adjust harness is wonderful. It means when your child grows taller, you don't have to rethread them. And as some of you all know, it is a nightmare to do that. All you have to do is press the button on the headrest, raise it taller, and that'll raise the harness taller with it. Perfect. When I'm recommending a child restraint, I always recommend an easy adjust harness because it just makes your life so much easier. As a side note, when you are raising the harness on the Luna, it can be a little bit tricky when you're pressing the button. So the button is the big silver bar above baby's head on the back of the headrest, the front of the headrest at the top. The button has 2 metal bars in it, one on each side. If you're pressing it with one hand, it doesn't always engage both bars, and it can be quite hard to do one-handed. So my recommendation is when you grab onto the headrest, press the button with this part of your thumbs, and both those bars will engage every time and work absolutely perfectly. So do it with 2 hands and it'll work amazingly. You do it with one hand, it can sometimes be a bit janky. The air protect are like little cushions of air inside the headrest so that in an accident, that's going to help dampen the inertia of an impact and reduce the forces exerted on baby. So that's a great thing. The adjustable crutch buckle is pretty good for the most part. It means you can raise up the crutch buckle height as you need to as baby grows. You can't do that on all car seats. The only downside to the crutch buckle adjustment is it's underneath and hard to get to. If it's in recline, you can usually stick your hands under and pull them down and slide it. You pull them down and slide it forwards, and that's how you move it. It's just hard to get to. If it's in the upright, it's really hard. You can still stick your hands under there. It's just a bit of a pain. The next thing is the bamboo fabric. The bamboo fabric is absolutely wonderful. It means, especially if you live in a hot climate, it's going to allow baby to regulate their body temperature a bit more. They're not going to get as sweaty and horrible in the car. Old-fashioned car seats were really hot and sweaty and just unpleasant, and there used to be nothing you can do about it. At least with these bamboo fabric car seats now, it makes a world of difference. It also has cup holders. Unlike the Maxi Guards cup holders, which are a weird shape, these ones are nice and round, and they generally fit pretty well. The only minor complaint I could say about that is they're quite shallow, but I've never had any cup holders that cups tip out. They just kind of flail around a bit, but at least they fit properly. The recline on this seat is pretty good. It's about the same as the Britax Maxi Guards, so they're quite comparable in that respect. The only minor downside to that is the recline bar is quite wide on the child restraint, and that can be a problem in center seatbelt positions, which I will explain later when I get to problems. And lastly, it's just It's got every feature you would want in a child restraint. So easy adjust, best practice, good recline, cup holders. They're all ticks from me. Now let's talk about the seatbelt path. The seatbelt path is pretty good in this one. They're about, I don't know, little under halfway up the child restraint. There's 2 big holes in the side and you put the seatbelt straight through and out the other side, plug it in. It's not too bad. When you put it through one side, you can lift up the flap where baby's back is and you can physically feed it through yourself, and it makes life a lot easier to get the harness, to get the seatbelt through. So that's a really big tick in my books. It makes your life easier when you're installing it. Because the seatbelt path is relatively high, it means cars with long seatbelt stalks don't have generally any problems. I've never had any problems installing it in cars with long stalks. So that's really good. Now, let's talk to the downsides. The only minor downside I can really talk about with this car seat is its sides are quite chunky, and in most situations that's not a problem. It's not an enormously wide car seat, so it will fit in 3 across situations. Wouldn't say all the time, but it's relatively good for 3 across. It's not massively wide, but the bottom of the seat where it sits on the back seat is really chunky and solid. And if you put it in a middle seatbelt position where the seatbelt buckles are quite narrow, it can cover all your seatbelts and you won't be able to install it. That's a problem. If your car is like a Commodore and it has nice wide seatbelt buckle placements, it's not a problem. Those chunky sides also can be a problem if you're installing it with 3 across and you're quite pushed for space, because there's nowhere for those buckles to go. Whereas with the Maxi Guard, the sides taper in a bit and it gives you a bit of extra room for those seatbelt buckles to come up alongside the car seat. You don't get that with the Luna, so sometimes that can be a bit of a problem. And like I mentioned before, access to the crutch buckle adjustment can be quite hard when it's installed. They are the only 2 quirks of this car seat which I think are a minor negative, but they're not a big deal and they won't affect most people, especially if the car seat's in recline. You can still get your hands underneath. So the last thing I will mention is I have a Maxi Cosi Luna and I have a Britax Maxi Guard, and I genuinely like both of them. They are absolutely wonderful. And I've got 2 kids, so I don't need to worry about 3 across, and I don't really have a preference between the 2. They both work really well. But in saying that, my car is not overly big internally. I've got a Toyota Hilux, an SR Hilux, and I'm 6'3", so I have to have my driver's seat all the way back. When I tried my Luna and my Maxi Guard in, both in upright, I found the Luna was ever slightly slimmer from front to back. So it meant when I installed it in the upright position, my daughter got slightly more leg room down behind my front driver's seat. So I went for the Luna in my Hilux because of that, where the Maxi Guard stuck out just a tiny bit more, and that made a big difference for my daughter. So that's why we have the Luna in my car. Other than that, they both fit the bill perfectly, and the Luna is absolutely wonderful. So if you're considering getting the Luna, I would certainly consider it. It's a wonderful car seat. It's great. Just double check it. If you're going to put it in a middle seatbelt position, just double check that it's going to work properly in your car. But other than that, you will love it, and it has all the features you need. So thank you for listening. I hope this helps, and please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more reviews in the future.